Welcome to the Bowel Chronicles, where we dive deep into the world of bowel health. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and on this podcast we have raw and candid conversations with individuals facing various bowel conditions and illnesses. Through personal stories and shared experiences, we illuminate resilience and courage in the face of adversity. Be reminded that each story is personal and unique. These conversations are not to be taken as medical advice or to replace guidance from a doctor or healthcare provider. Our aim is to inspire and empower through these amazing stories, amplifying voices often unheard. So join us as we embark on this journey together. Sit back, listen, and be inspired. Enjoy the episode. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bowel Chronicles. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and today we are joined by the lovely Sophie Kirk. Some of you might recognise her or recognise her voice on social media. She's also known as Mona, Stoma and Me. And of course, her handle will be tagged in the show notes here below. Sophie, it's really good to have you here with us today to share your story, so thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me, lovely.
You're welcome. Sophie, you have a very big presence on social media. I've been following you for quite some time now, and I get so much satisfaction and joy out of actually seeing your social media. You share all different kinds of stuff on your kind of health journey and your everyday life. And let's just take your story back. I know you've had your ileostomy stoma surgery from 2020, but you've had so many issues before that. Where did your story start in relation to bowel health? What was going on with you? Tell us a little bit about your diagnosis and what was life like.
So, I think in my late teens, it always started with what I thought was just anxious belly. I used to suffer with quite a lot of anxious belly, but nothing really started until I had my first Madison. So that was in 2007. And it was as soon as I had her, everything just sort of ramped up. I used to have like really horrendous stomach cramps, diarrhea all the time. And that was actually the first time after I had Madison, I had my like public accident, and I was just mortified. Thank God I was on my own in a park with her. But I went to doctors about it then. So that was 13 years ago before my surgery, to sort of say about, I'm getting all these symptoms. I don't think they're quite normal. And their answer was it's postpartum and it's your living conditions, because obviously they were aware I was in a really, really volatile relationship then. So they just put it down to sort of stress, living situation, just postpartum. So I went with that. I just kind of thought, okay, maybe is my body changing after having a baby? But then things just carried on and on and on and got worse and worse. And I cannot tell you how many times I went to the doctor. And back then, this was when you had your own doctor, not like now where you're just given anyone. It was, I had my same doctor for so many years, and I went back to her relentlessly so many times, just saying I've got these symptoms. And then can't remember how far into it. No, it's probably a bit further down the line. I started bleeding. So it was mostly just diarrhea, public accidents, cramping pains, all that sort of stuff. And she just persistently told me IBS, 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 and then got referred to dietitians. I did low FODMAP diets. I did everything that they suggested for IBS, and actually all of that made my symptoms even worse. So I was going back saying this isn't working. And then she left after about 7 years. Yeah, I must have got about 7 years into constantly saying I've got these problems. She then left and I got a new GP. So I just was at breaking point then, because I had both kids. I was really, really struggling. So I went and saw him and I just broke down, and it was more, I've had enough of life. I can't cope. I can't move forward. And I hadn't gone to him really about the bowel issues. It was more my mental health. I was just like, I'm so down. I can't control my bowel issues. It's just ruining my life with my children. So he said to me, have you ever had this investigated? And I was like, well, I've been told it's IBS all these years. And he was like, he was really mortified actually. And he was like, I'm going to refer you for a colonoscopy. So that was when I got referred to my first colonoscopy, and they found on that first one biliary gastritis, which was where my gallbladder was flicking bile acid into my stomach, burning the stomach lining. So that's a lie. It wasn't a colonoscopy. That was a gastroscopy. They found that.
Yes.
And then later they did a colonoscopy and found I had a condition called Serrated Polyposis Syndrome.
Right.
It started off as a couple of polyps, and then as the years went on, it went from a couple to tens to hundreds to thousands, and then my entire colon was covered. I remember every time they'd do the colonoscopy, I'd be watching the screens and you couldn't see bowel because there were so many polyps.
Wow.
And every time they'd be trying to snare them to get as many of them out. There were certain really suspicious looking ones that they'd always focus on those ones first. But then at that point, I remember saying to I was under consultants then, you know, I've been moved from sort of GP under consultant care because I had this polyp syndrome. And then I remember saying to him on numerous occasions, like, I bleed loads, like I'm always bleeding when I go to the toilet. And he was just like, oh, it'd be hemorrhoids. And I was like, and by this point, he was doing colonoscopies every 6 months. So I was like, but every time you go in there, you don't see.
They're still putting that down to hemorrhoids, even
Yeah.
if these polyps are visible in your colon.
Yeah, so they knew obviously I had serrated polyposis. They were treating me for that. There was no treatment for it. It was just to get rid of them each time because obviously it's a really aggressive, like pre-cancerous condition. And then, yeah, I kept saying about the bleeding. He was just like, no, it will just be hemorrhoids. And I was like, but you go in there often enough to see there are not hemorrhoids in my butt. And they kept telling me to treat it with topical treatments. So that then would set my bum on fire. It was so painful. And then I think fast forward quite some time, we then started heading in towards COVID. And I've been working by that point for a couple of years frontline for the ambulance service. And as we were heading into COVID, our station, we all went down with what we would now know as COVID. But obviously it hadn't come out publicly then that it was, you know, but our whole station went down with all these symptoms. And then as soon as I had had that, my symptoms just went off the radar. Like I was going to toilet 30, 40, 50 times a day. And it was pure blood every time, pure blood, clots, everything. But I was carrying on, like working frontline, working out all the time, being mum, you know, just doing everything. And it got to the May, and where my symptoms had gotten so bad, I think I put it down to working frontline. Our job had really changed from we'd be taking patients into hospital to save them. And then COVID, we were taking people in to die. You know, we knew they'd be going in onto ventilators and they were going to die. So I think I just put it down to so much stress and like the upset, the pain, you know, everything of what we were seeing on the road. And then I was at home one day and I got a really awful phone call from a colleague at work to say that a crewmate that I worked with had taken her life the day before, and we were supposed to be working together the day before. And with that news, I got off the phone and I ran from my bathroom and I just hemorrhaged. I hemorrhaged blood. And I rang my consultant. He said, come straight in now. We'll fast track you. Come straight in. So I went in, and this was, as I say, the May of, you know, we were in lockdown at this point of thing. I went into hospital. They took me straight down to theatre. And when I came out, they were like, you have got the worst form of inflammatory bowel disease we've seen to date. So I was like, bowel disease? Like, what's that? And they said, oh, like Crohn's, colitis. And this when they said colitis. And I kind of just brushed it off, just simply because all the patients I've gone out to on the road that have had Crohn's, really naively, I looked at them like, it's a bit of stomach pain. You know, I didn't know the ins and outs of how severe it was. You know, I'd take patients in who were doubled over in pain, vomiting, all that sort of stuff, but not actually know the severity of it. And then, yeah, that was my first admission. So I got admitted for just over 2 weeks. And I was, you know, started on like the steroids and mesalazines, all that sort of stuff. And then it just escalated really, but really fast. It was a duration of 6 months from when I came out. And obviously all of this being peak of COVID, I had to do everything on my own. So every appointment I went into was on my own. I had to have a lot of my treatment at home. I couldn't actually go into hospital and have treatment. It was only when I finally got on to infliximab, the biologics, that I was going in to have infusions. But my body rejected every single drug that they gave me. It was just like, nope. And then October 2020, my consultant rang me and said, can you come in? I was like, not really. Like, we were back in, I think, the second lockdown. And I was like, I don't really want to come in. He was like, we need you to come in. So I went in, had loads of tests done. And he just basically said, if we don't remove your bowel, you've got about 4 weeks to live. And I think I was just like, you know, I hadn't even processed, I don't think, in that time what was really going on, because I'd been living for so many years with my symptoms. So my symptoms hadn't really gotten so much worse because I think they were at their absolute peak, sort of thing. So yeah, they booked me in for emergency surgery. So I had all of that done in lockdown, which was very lonely, very tough, very lonely. Lots of things I haven't told my family because I think I can't put them through what I went through without them there, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's how Mona number one was born.
Mona,
Right.
you're
Yeah,
still,
yeah,
wow. That's absolutely, it's heartbreaking to hear, you know, as you said, treating people on the front line, what you're going through. It was very, very stressful circumstances. And I think, you know, on talking to majority of people who have ulcerative colitis, stress is the number one thing
yeah.
that it just appears to feed it,
Mm,
and makes it very, very active. And, you know, a lot of us live with a very, very busy lifestyle, and stress is a big part of life,
yeah,
hard to avoid sometimes. And it sure sounds like living in those times in the height of COVID, it probably exacerbated your symptoms. But in a way, it kind of highlighted what was going on, and probably saved you in a way that, you know, it flagged up the extent of the disease. And, you know, I know it was hidden for so long by the polyposis syndrome, but I just, I can't even begin to kind of fathom the pain that
mm.
you must have been going through for a number of years. Probably, you know, that polyposis syndrome had been alive, and the colitis in your body for much longer than you could even think about, you know.
And that's it. Why is no one listening when you're saying I'm on my bathroom floor crying? You know, I'm crying in pain every night, and any meal I'd eat, I wouldn't even finish a meal before I'm in the bathroom, doubled over in pain. And it was just like, how is this normal? How is this IBS? Like, I don't understand how you can accept someone of my age, sort of, I was fit, well, healthy, that I thought, but actually I've got this blooming disease inside of me that is just ruining my body.
I think sadly for a lot of people, IBS seems to be the coverall that, you know, is a quick fix. It's an answer. I'm giving you an answer. I'm diagnosing you with something. And sadly, the longer that that is left and untreated, you know, that disease grows and becomes much worse, and
Mm.
has a huge impact on our lives. And it's not okay. And I would say to any viewers that are listening today, you know, if you have any symptoms of bleeding and chronic diarrhea, you know, you've heard Sophie there, in and out of the bathroom 20 plus times, up to 40 times a day, you know, bleeding, lying on the bathroom floor. It's not normal, and you definitely need to go and seek professional help and get a second opinion if needs be, you know,
Yeah,
because it's
absolutely.
not okay.
Mm.
It's not. So you end up with Mona number one, which is, that was an ileostomy surgery, am I
Yep,
right?
yep, yep.
Do
Yeah,
you
just
want to,
surgery.
do you want to explain what an ileostomy is?
An
Just for,
ileostomy, yeah, that's a stoma that's formed from your small intestine. So I've had my entire large intestine removed. At that time, I had the rectal stump left in situ. And what they had done is my surgeon doesn't like to leave it flapping about as such inside the body. So he stitches it internally to your bikini line.
Mhm.
But that in turn then caused me problems in recovery, and then ended up with further surgery after that.
Okay.
Um, so what had happened after when I was recovering? So it was that first, obviously the first bit in hospital was rough. You know, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
flower it up and make it look pretty. It's rough. And then got home, started recovering, and was like, I think I had that light bulb moment that so many people have where you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to toilet 1,000 times a day. I'm actually, but no, started recovering, started to feel sort of okay-ish, but I was like, what is going on? I was going to toilet and still passing blood. So it just came on out of nowhere. A couple of weeks post surgery, I just got the urge to poo. And I was like, oh, how can this be normal? I'm not plumbed in. I didn't know anything about this either. I hadn't been pre-warned about passing mucus, nothing. I didn't have any of these sort of conversations pre-surgery. And I went to the bathroom and obviously passed all this gross mucus stuff. But then that continued and continued. And then every day it was blood all the time. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand how I'm making this when I'm not plumbed into anything. And I spoke to my surgeon 6 weeks post-surgery, and he said, oh, I think you've got diversional colitis. He said there was colitis visible in the rectum. He said, but it wasn't bad enough for us to remove. And then I went back in, had a flexi sigmoidoscopy, and it showed really aggressive diversional colitis. It just flared really, really quickly. So they put me in straight away. But again, it was 6 months for proctectomy surgery. And I think the reason that they went ahead with this was because also where I've just explained where he left the rectal stump attached to my bikini line from the inside, I then got a fistula. So I remember laying in bed one evening and I put my hand down, as you do, to check your bag, and I was like, oh, I've had a leak. So I've gone to the bathroom to sort myself out. I'm looking at the bag, no leak on the bag anywhere, but I kept getting wet on my hand, and I was like, where is this coming from? And on my bikini line, I had a pinprick hole, literally a pinprick, and just clear liquid was just squirting out of it. And I was like, what the hell is this? So as time went on, as days went on, that hole went from a pinprick and just opened and opened and opened. So where he removed my bowel initially in the first surgery, they tried to do it laparoscopically, and he did warn me pre-surgery, oh, you might have the incision up your tummy, like most people have. But thankfully I didn't, but he couldn't get my bowel out laparoscopically. So they opened me like a cesarean and took it out that way. So that wound just basically opened and opened and opened to the point I went in and saw a colorectal nurse, and he said to me, did you know if I stick a pencil through that, that will come out down your bum? I was like, excuse me? And he was explaining basically that was my rectum. The disease had eaten its way out and opened my stomach. So yeah, so I was booked in for the proctectomy because I had that. I had a kink in my bowel as well that was causing me blockages all the time right behind my stoma. So yeah, 6 months later I had the proctectomy, the fistula, and the refashion of my stoma all together. So that was Mona number 2 born. But that disease, the disease in the rectum, was so bad, it had gone all through like the vaginal wall, everything. It had caused so much damage. So yeah, it was rough.
And can I ask, does that then have complications now for you, you know, from a gynae point of view, or has that been resolved post surgery?
No, so my uterus has collapsed now. So it's fallen backwards, which they said to me, oh, this is, this can happen in this surgery. I was like, no one explained that to me. So once you've had your rectum removed, your rectum's obviously what holds up your uterus. And so I've lost that. So I did see him the other week actually, and he offered to refer me to gynae and they can do some scaffolding, was his words. And I was like, I don't want scaffolding in there. Like, I just want it left alone. So yeah, I get problems with like periods and everything. I get pooling because obviously my uterus now sits like that. It all just pools inside. So that's grim. And I have to manually start my periods and stuff. But aside from that, everything surgery wise is healed and I'm all good. So.
And can I ask, like, mentally, surgery obviously happened pretty fast. On the lead up to your surgery, was there ever a moment where you thought, oh my goodness, I'll have a stoma, or that's a possibility, because your symptoms were so bad?
Yeah, before I was even diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, I started following people on Instagram that had stomas, because I had told myself I cannot live with going to the toilet 30 plus times a day. So I'm literally going to go to doctors and ask for a stoma. There would have been at that point, there would have been no reason for me to have had one. Other than obviously now in hindsight, I've learned the serrated polyposis would have been a reason anyway to have ended up with a stoma, because they said I couldn't have carried on with the polyposis, how bad that was. But no, I'd started following people and thought, do you know what? That's what I actually want. So I was going down the route of potentially saying this is going to be an elective choice for me anyway. It's what I want to do. But I still didn't know anything about them. I didn't understand any of the sort of implications, everything that comes with living with a stoma. But no, obviously everything actually all of it ended up being emergencies and urgent cases. So I didn't, in the time frame of having my surgeries, I had no time to get my head around things. It's actually, if anything, it affects me now more mentally 4 years down the line than it did at the time.
Yeah, I think people go on adrenaline whenever that kicks in and it's an emergency. Deal with it afterwards, sadly.
Yeah.
So post-surgery then, apart from the mental side of things, like health-wise, dealing with stoma, day-to-day life, how does that impact you? Has it been a negative experience? Has it been a positive experience? What's it like with work? What's it like with children? Explaining. What is stomas like? How has it been?
So initially I found it hard because I couldn't get my head around living on low residue forever. I was told by my team in hospital, this is the diet you're going to be on and you're going to be on it forever. So I came home and my husband would literally make me smiley faces, you know, the little potato smiley faces. He'd cook broccoli until it had died, basically. It was just, everything was just mush. And I just remember getting sort of probably 6 weeks post-op-ish around that time. And I was like, I can't live like this. I'm a real foodie. So no matter how ill I was before my surgeries, I would eat through all that pain. And I had a consultant at one point say to me, you can't have bowel disease because you're not skinny enough. And I was like, that's because I love my grub, mate. I'm not going to be a teeny tiny wasted away poorly girl with this disease, because I will continue to eat through any pain because I love my food. So post-op initially was quite hard. And then I did get, I still have iron deficient anemia. So I had to have iron infusion. So I did feel dreadful for the first few months, but I set myself the goal of climbing Mount Snowdon. I'd never, so pre-surgery, obviously I never did anything because I couldn't leave the house. You know, I'd go to work and that, but thankfully on my job, you know, if we're going to a patient, I can quickly use their toilet, hospitals, care homes, all that sort of stuff. But I'd never sort of gone hiking or anything like that because you haven't got a toilet with you. So I set myself the goal of climbing Snowdon. I think it was 4 months post-op, and I did it. And that, from there, I think is just where everything went up. You know, when you just think you've accomplished something, you think, I can do it. I can do it. So I'm going to make this, you know, I've got to, because by that point I had to accept this is my life now. I can't have it reversed. I have funny moments where I think I grieve. I don't even know if grief's the right word, but you know, when you think, this is my life, I'm never gonna be normal in brackets, you know, I'm ever gonna live with a bag. And I can get a little bit overwhelmed with those sort of thoughts at times. You know, the whole, I used to care for a lady in her 80s that had a stoma, didn't faze me in the slightest. But me now thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do with my stoma when I'm 80? You know, those sort of things. But yeah, and then I also had one of my managers at work said to me, you'll never work frontline with a stoma. So I was like, well, I'll bloody prove you wrong, mate. So that was another real, you know, certain goal. I was like, no, I'm getting back to work. I'm doing this. So yeah, I went back to work and returned back to frontline duties. And now I could do everything with the kids that I couldn't do before. We do everything now. We go hiking, we go on long walks, we go camping, paddle boarding, all the things that I would have loved to have done before, but wouldn't have been able to do it through needing the toilet. So they've taken a big impact as well. The kids, you know, all their lives has been, my sister has stepped in a lot, and she would take them for days out and do things because obviously I couldn't do it. So it's just lovely to have all those sort of family moments now where I'm like, oh,
I think
enjoy this.
life's probably become a lot more precious, you know, if I can say that, you know, because not that it was taken for granted before, but I can't even say you've gotten your quality of life back because you had no quality of life before. This has given you a life.
Yeah.
There's been some complications with it, but your life is definitely better now than what it was previously. And
Yes.
I'm sure your loved ones can see that and appreciate that. And it's like, okay, we just gotta go with it now, you know. And I know your whole social media is around changing perceptions. You know, this is your life now, this is your body, your stomach's not going anywhere, and it's okay. It's about educating people and getting an awareness out there that stomas do save lives, and you know, it's okay to have one. You know, it's changing those perceptions of this is
Absolutely.
my life back, you know.
No, I went to an event recently for, it was a hospital locally were holding, like, you know, an event for people living with stomas and that. And I find it really hard because I try not to throw too much positivity at people, but I'm like, you've got to realize this is my life, how I'm, because it was really hard. There was a guy there who was absolutely devastated and just, he so desperately wanted a reversal. He absolutely hates his stoma with a passion. And I get that. You don't need to love your stoma. You don't even need to like it, but it's just coming to that acceptance that I'm here because of it. Like, I'm still alive because of it. And this is what I was sort of trying to say to him. I was like, you had cancer. Like, you know, you're here still and you're managing to enjoy your life with your grandchildren and your family and everything. And I could totally see where he was coming from. That's why I try not to be really like in people's faces with all like my positivity. But then it's hard because it totally has given me a new life. Absolutely.
And I appreciate like everyone's journey isn't the same. There are people that
Yeah.
really struggle with it, and you know, even people kind of similar circumstances where they've had emergency surgery, that is really, really hard to process. And you have said, you know, mentally that is still impacting you 4 years later. So it's not that we're, you know, it's all positive. There are days where we're totally fatigued, floored, and
Yeah.
we do get down days. And I think as well, you're really good at that, showing that on your social media, where you're having a shit time and you're not afraid to show it because it is real. But when you kind of weigh up how life was beforehand,
Yeah.
you're definitely in a way better place than what you were. So it kind of becomes more positive or looks more positive or feels more positive. But yeah, it's not the
I
case.
always think that if I documented my life before stoma, it would literally be on the sofa, in bed, on the toilet. Can you imagine? It'd just be such boring content. People would be like, just get up. But yeah, it was, and it did, you know, it did cause frictions at home and everything because we were, as a family, all missing out on things because of my health. It was just, and it was the stress and guilt as well that's on you as a mum, that you can't give the kids sort of, you know, you've brought them into the world and then you can't give them the life
That you
they
want.
sort of deserve. Yeah, and I want for them. Yeah,
Mhm.
but they got it now.
So you've gone through surgery, and you have had a lot of opportunities. So I know you are an ambassador. You're an ambassador with Coloplast. You're an ambassador with the IA. Let's talk a little about that. You also volunteer with Crohn's and Colitis UK. You've had like so many opportunities. You're doing an awful lot of work, as well as trying to work yourself and be a mom and all of that. You have a very, very busy life, and then your social media presence. How did you come to, you know, decide on your social media of wanting to share that? Was it because you had researched other people, it had helped you? You know, what was all of the thoughts and things that were going on behind that? And then let's talk a wee bit about your ambassador stuff.
Yeah, my social, so I already had my social media page, but it was all, I've been obsessive all my life with weight loss, diets, you know, all these dreadful programs. So my social media, if you scroll back years, it's all just food, 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 as
Mhm.
in diets, you know, what everything about losing weight and everything. And then when everything took a turn with my health, I thought like I'd been following obviously people with stomas, but I hadn't seen at that point anyone's journeys leading up to stoma. And obviously I didn't know at that point I was going to have a stoma. Mine was right at the beginning of treatment. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to start documenting about living with ulcerative colitis and serrated polyposis because I didn't see a lot at that time about it. So it was more, you know, talking about sort of how each day was and how each hospital appointment. And if anything, it's probably just like a journal diary for me sort of thing, just keeping it all in one place and being able to look back at it over time. But then yeah, just with time it's sort of built, and I haven't got a lot sort of around surgery time, I think, because I felt quite vulnerable then putting things online. I think it'd be very different now. Like I know I've got more surgery. I've got they're saying it's a hernia, but it's a bit confusing sort of what it is. My bowel has basically all kinked behind the stoma again, like it did last time. And so where it's got sort of a bit knotted in, you know, like an umbilical cord when they can sort of get knots in them. That's what my bowel's done basically behind my stoma. So they can't actually work out if it's just that or if there is a hernia as well there. So I've got more surgery coming up, unfortunately.
Oh,
But that at least, you know, I've got a lot more, I'm a lot more open to talking about things. Back when I started it all, it was just posts. I never spoke on stories, on reels or anything. I was like, oh my God, no. But yeah, so I just did it. It was just to help others. And I didn't do it on my personal Instagram. I think that's just, I think a lot of people say the same, don't they? Like, oh, their friends and family don't really want to see all the ins and outs. But it just went from there. And then I've been really lucky to get some really great opportunities since.
yeah. So then you do a lot of work with the IA. And
Yeah.
obviously we're not sponsored by anyone or sponsoring anything here, but I do like to mention it because, you know, it is an amazing opportunity that you've had. You know, you show your bag changes, the products that you use on your social media. And you know, it is really, really helpful in educating to people with stomas
Yeah.
or potentially going through surgeries. I know it was something that helped me. I learned, I was like, oh my goodness, a bag change can literally be in less than 5 minutes. I
I
remember
know.
having um a stoma, and it was like probably 2005, way back, and she was in her 70s, and
Oh,
oh my goodness, the bags were a lot different then, and nobody could
I
change the
know.
bag with my grandpa. I've shared that before here, and
Oh,
it was something that took forever.
yeah.
You
But then
know,
I still remember that in my early days when I first got my stomach, I feel like now looking back, I was like, how did it take you so long to change your bag? Like literally now, I had someone come around actually from Supportex yesterday to measure me for a belt, and I knew she was 2 minutes away. She rung and said where she was. I was like, it's 2 minutes. Have I got time? And I literally ran just because I just got out of the shower. So I had a wet bag on. I thought, well, she's going to be measuring me. I don't want it to be wet.
yeah,
So I was like, done. So yeah, it is funny now when I look back and think, how on earth did it take you 30 minutes to change your bag before?
yeah, yeah. And the thing with that is because we can do it in literally 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I procrastinate. I'm like, can I get
Oh
another day?
no.
And it's for the sake of like a minute and a half or 2 minutes of a bag change. We procrastinate so much.
So I was so impressed to see on your stories yesterday that your bag had lasted 5 days. I was like, wow. So for me mentally, I can't do that. I wish I could, like, because
I was
God, it saved a
changing
few bags.
every 3 to 4 days. That's kind
Yeah.
of what 3 days. If you can push it to four, try 4 days. And to be honest, I had I had forgotten what day I changed it on. And
That's
then
so
because I had shared the reel, I thought, oh my goodness, that's what I was wearing. It was Saturday. And I sometimes make content during the week, so it's not always posted on the same day.
yeah.
But I posted a reel today and it was from last Saturday and it was a week. It was a full 7 days. And I actually didn't change it until late in the evening on Saturday. So it was more than the 7 days. And I still had the cheek to look down and go, can I get another day out of that? I'm in and out of the hot tub. I am in the shower every day because I'm training every day. I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna give this a go. So now the bag that I currently have on, what day is today? Today is Thursday. This bag has been on since Saturday.
So I know my bags would last that long, but it's my own insecurities, I think, about having a leak. And that's why obviously it's amazing working with Coloplast.
Yeah.
I've been trialing Halo and now I use Halo, the leak detection device. And it's just, do you know what? That tiny little device on my stomach has saved my mental health because I was so obsessed about leaks that it would be like all day, every day, I'll be checking, I'll be feeling. And I'm not even someone that suffers with leaks. I suffer with the worry of leaks and it really, really consumes my mind. And I'm really fortunate to be able to use that
Thanks
because
so
now
much.
I can push it out for like 2-3 days.
Are you someone then every time you go for a pee, you empty your bag?
Yeah,
That's just the way I am.
yeah.
There's probably, I don't know, once every couple of days when I'm having a pee that I don't have to, and I'm like, oh, you can get away with it for a few
Like,
hours.
oh, I've got to come back again to do that in a bit. Yeah,
The other
yeah,
thing is I tend to wear my support band. So if I'm doing a workout and then I'm like around the house doing some things, I'll leave the support band on.
yeah.
And I yesterday, it had been a few hours, hadn't had a pee, and I was getting ready to dish up dinner, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, you need to check her. Like, oh, you're really full. The support band really holds you in. I was like,
Yeah,
ground tools. I need to deal with this before I actually have a leak because I've never
yeah.
had a leak.
Oh,
Um,
that's
so it's like, get rid of it and keep emptying. I wouldn't really like have a lot of anxiety, would be that type of person. But it's like every time I pee, I'm going to empty this, going to get this
yeah.
done. You don't like that weightiness or it
No,
feeling.
I'm the exact same. I
Yeah,
empty mine. Yeah, so when people say, when people are asked, oh, how many times do you empty it a day? And I think like the average person sort of says maybe 4 times. It's for me every time I go for a wee or anytime there's anything in there. I'm just a bit OCD with it that I just, and it takes 2 seconds, doesn't it? Run to the toilet and just empty it and you're done, sort of thing. So I just hate the middle of the night ones. You're just like, why? It's only once in the night, which is so much better than being woken up 10 times in the night with,
yeah.
diarrhea and that. But
Do you find if you eat later in the evening, it works, or because I was always someone with slow colon transit anyway.
I know that's
But
rough.
because even when I have my evening meal, if I don't have a snack in the evening, I wake up, I'm starving, I can't sleep, so I have to have something to eat in the evening. But when I have my dinner, my dinner doesn't come through until the next morning or lunchtime the next day. But my breakfast will still be coming through and my lunch will still be coming through.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've got
Get up.
I what do they call it? It's really fast. I've got like a real fast sort of transit. So dinner, I don't really tend to eat unless I'm going out with friends for dinner. Then obviously it's always booked late, isn't it? Because of childcare for everyone and everything. But at home, we have dinner anything between sort of 4:30 and 6
Yeah.
evening. This sort will still continue sort of snacking throughout the evening, but then I stop because I just think if I keep eating, then I'm up all throughout the night because mine does go through like, yeah. And I've tested it now. I'm like, right, I'm going to eat some sweet corn, see how quick it takes to come through. And it's through within like an hour. So it's, yeah.
That was going to be my next question. Have you found there is food you can't eat, or can you generally eat most things?
Pak choy. Is it pak choy? I don't even know if I'm saying that right. You know, the thing that comes in like stir fries. That is the only thing, because it's a real stringy leaf. It just yeah, no, that is probably, I think that's one of the only things. And the only thing actually I haven't had is a steak. I have like beef and everything in a slow cooker, but I haven't actually eaten a steak because I definitely don't break down red meat as well.
Yeah.
So although I can eat, you know, mince and all that sort of stuff, it just doesn't break down as well for me for some reason. But no, I'm really fortunate. But again, that's something that has taken time, taken practice. I worked with a really, really good dietitian, really good dietitian. She guided me the whole way. We reintroduced like one food group at a time. Because you've got to learn with a stoma, if you go and bulk 15 veg together, you're not going to know which one's the problem when you get that blockage. You know, you're just going to suddenly realize I've got a blockage, and then that's it, you're anti those 15 veg. And I come across, you know, so many people message me about, because I post so much of my dinners,
Yeah.
so many people message me like, oh my god, how do you eat this? And oh, I've got a blockage from this. And I'm just like, you've got to go slow, you've got to introduce one thing at a time. And my title, everyone knows me as, is chew chew chew. 3 times I just always say chew chew chew. You've got to really, really. So yeah, I'm very conscious eater. So if I'm having a conversation when eating, then I'm like, I've just swallowed a whole piece of chicken.
Same. And that's my kind of attitude to people whenever they're saying, oh, you can eat peppers and you can have sweet corn and, you know, whatever it is. I'm like, I honestly, I have passed bigger bits of chicken through my
Yeah,
stomach
literally.
than pepper. But I can remember the first time I was talking and I was having a TV dinner, which we don't usually do.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd had potato skins. So I normally
Oh,
have
okay.
a baked potato with gammon steak, and I can remember almost choking on a piece of gammon because I'd swallowed it in conversation. But I swallowed it in conversation because I had realized that I had eaten half of the jacket potato and not left any skin.
Yeah, yeah. No, actually, do you know what you say? That jacket potato actually is one of the only things that I haven't eaten soft. If it's really crisp and crunchy, I'm fine. I can chew it all, and that's absolutely fine. But if it's soft still, which I think that should be illegal with a jacket potato, they shouldn't be soft. But if it is, then I don't eat the skin off them. But no, I am really, really lucky with food, and I do suffer blockages. People do see on my Instagram, because I'm very open in saying, "Oh, bloody hell, I've got a blockage again." But I'm really lucky that I haven't, touched wood, I've not been hospitalized. I've had one blockage that was very near that. It was 16 hours. I was doubled in pain. But thankfully, I've just learned fizzy drinks, heat on my stomach, movement, and then I can usually shift it on my own. But it will be where I've just got excited and inhaled a piece of food. So I know 9 times out of 10 what's done it. And I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
But
What I will say here is, you know, as Sophie has said, trial and error, you know,
yeah,
take small amounts, try different food groups first, try to break it down and chew, because everybody's stomach is completely different. What I can eat, what you can eat, what others can eat is completely different. So what works for us doesn't necessarily work for everyone. But definitely if you've got any problems around, speak to a dietitian, speak to your stomach nurse for that bit of guidance, and chew. Sophie, if there was one bit of information, one little golden nugget you could leave with our audience today before we wrap up, what would it be?
Absolutely, advocate for yourself. You've got to be an advocate for your own health. And it is so cliche, but health is wealth. Like if you know, you can't look after yourself, you can't look after others if you're sick. So you've just got, I've just learned over time, I hate the thought of having to stamp my feet to be heard. But when it comes down to my health, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm not going to give up. And, you know, unfortunately, I'm going through it all now. My daughter, she's presenting with all the similar symptoms. She's now under the gastro teams and everything. And same story, IBS. And it's just like, no, I will be fighting this until we get an actual diagnosis. So yeah, it is definitely advocate for yourself. And for me, social media is a winner. I know a lot of people see it as a negative thing, but there's so many of us on there that can help you. And just like I actually said it on my stories this morning, there's no such thing as a silly question. So if anyone wants to ping me anything, ask anything, same as yourself and, you know, all the others, none of us, you know, we'll all take the time to answer. So yeah, it's just advocate for yourself and speak up. Don't hide with these symptoms.
It's probably one of my favorite things. You know, before I absolutely hated social media because it's full of negativity, and you know, I try to use it for the better, for the greater good.
Yeah.
But in our community, nobody wants to see you suffer. You know,
No.
nobody is going to judge you. Everybody has got each other's backs,
Yeah.
supporting each other. And as you say, no question is a silly question. You know, everybody, if we can't get you an answer, we'll get you someone who can get you an
Exactly
answer.
that.
Point you
Exactly
in
that.
the right
Yeah.
direction, you know, to get the help and the support that you need. So if you're listening today and you're like, oh my goodness, I can resonate with Sophie's story, I have more questions, you know, ping her a message across. She will, I'm surely, you know, at some stage she'll come back to you, answer what she can, you know, listen to the interview, follow her there. Her social media handles for here, for Instagram and for TikTok, will be posted in the show notes. So go give her a like, give her a follow. And guys, I highly recommend you tune in for her recipes. I'm actually looking forward to making pasta recipe. Like that looks amazing. So I'm going to give that a go. But yep, go over there, look at her content. It is so helpful. She shares every area of her life, the activities she gets up to, the products she uses, what life's like, what she eats. You know, it's all there on her grid. So go give her a like and follow. Guys, that is us. That's us for today. Yeah. Sophie, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. We really, really appreciate it. It's been great.
Oh no, thank you. I've loved it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Guys, do come back for next week where we'll have another episode. But for now, it's over and out from Sophie and myself. Bye.
Bye.